It's Wednesday, April the 15th, 2026, and you've joined us for Denison Forum's Daily Article Podcast. Welcome. I'm Chris Elkins, narrating today's daily article, authored by friend and cultural theologian, Dr. Jim Denison. If you're unhappy about paying federal income taxes today, blame the 16th Amendment. If you're expecting a refund and wish the filing date was earlier, blame Congress. In 1955, it moved the date from March 15th to April 15th, reportedly so the government can hold on to your money longer before issuing your refund. Here's some related good news. Tax Freedom Day will soon be here. As the Tax Project website explains, this is the day when you have earned enough to pay your combined federal, state, and local tax contributions for the year. It typically falls somewhere between the second and third week of April, though it's later for people who pay state income taxes. For the rest of the year, you can finally begin working for and paying yourself. On the other hand, I'm grateful for the benefits of the taxes I pay. As Oliver Wendell Holmes Jr. noted, quote, "The tax is the price of what we pay for civilized society," end quote. I wouldn't want to try to replicate what the government does with the money I pay, from roads to schools to police and military forces. And I've traveled overseas enough to be deeply grateful to live in America with all our flaws and failings. On the other hand, it feels liberating to think that everything I earn from this point forward is mine to do with as I wish. My friends in Cuba have no idea what it's like to experience such autonomy. For most people across most of human history, individual freedom was more a myth than a reality. From subjects of the emperor or monarch, to feudal serfs working lands owned by their lords, to vast populations ruled by autocrats and communist dictators, unalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness were anything but. These two aforementioned hands go together. We have the freedoms we experience in America in significant part because we pay for them by supporting the government agencies who do for us what we would otherwise have to do for ourselves. You know all of this, of course, whether you've thought about it lately or not. The idea that we get what we pay for, that we are consumers who purchase our lifestyles through what we earn, is woven into the fabric of our culture. No element of our daily lives is immune from such transactionalism. We can sever our relationships, even with those who love us most, if we divorce or abandon them. Now, to my point. I believe this capitalistic mindset to be the greatest single impediment to spiritual awakening in the Western world. It is a sobering fact that the greatest movements of God's Spirit today are occurring in places where Western-style democracy is least prevalent. I have witnessed personally the revival sweeping Cuba. Multitudes of Muslims around the world are turning to Christ after seeing visions and dreams of Jesus. The fastest growing church in the world is in Iran. The underground church in China is exploding in growth. Here's what these miraculous movements have in common. They are happening where people are desperate for only what God can do. Awakenings in Western history have followed the same pattern. Prior to the Great Awakenings of 1734, 1792, 1858, and 1904 and 05, there was widespread immorality, malaise, and even economic and spiritual depression. For more on this, see our book, The Fifth Great Awakening and the Future of America. A link to it is in today's podcast episode notes. The awakening that began in South Korea in the 1950s was a direct result of the devastation of the Korean War. Our problem today is that transactionalism and grace are enemies. The more I believe, consciously or subliminally, that my spiritual activities and good deeds purchase God's favor, the more I distance myself from His best. This is not because He is a feudal Lord who insists that His subjects bow to Him in subjugated dependence. It's because grace is the only way an infinitely holy and perfect God can relate to beings whose very nature is transfused by finitude and sin. Agur, son of Jacob, from Proverbs 30, verse 1, is not well known, but his ancient questions from verse 4 are still relevant. Who has ascended to heaven and come down? Who has gathered the wind in his fists? Who has wrapped the waters in a garment? Who has established the ends of the earth? Think about it. Is there anything you can do that the creator of the universe needs? Do you have anything with which to purchase anything from him? We are like children borrowing money from our parents to buy them Christmas presents and thinking that they are now in our debt. Because people who write and read articles like this one tend to be more religiously active than others, we can especially be tempted by the unstated sense that we have earned what God only can give. Tim Keller famously wrote, "The gospel is this: we are more sinful and flawed in ourselves than we ever dared believe. Yet, at the very same time, we are more loved and accepted in Jesus than we ever dared hope." As a result, Keller noted, if you want God's grace, all you need is need. All you need is nothing. Then Keller put his finger on our problem. But that kind of spiritual humility is hard to muster. We come to God saying, look at all I've done, or maybe, look at all I've suffered. God, however, wants us to look to him to just wash, end quote. Why do you need to just wash today? You didn't expect it to shake you this much. Maybe it was the diagnosis. Maybe it was the funeral. Maybe it was the prayer that went unanswered. You believe in God. You always have. But lately, you find yourself wondering, why did he allow this? Why didn't he intervene? Can I really trust him? The world has answers. Everything happens for a reason. Just have more faith. Don't ask questions. But none of those bring peace, because deep down, you don't need cliches. You need clarity. You need truth strong enough to hold your questions. That's why we re-released Dr. Jim Denison's new edition of Wrestling with God. In this honest and personal book, Jim tackles the hardest questions Christians can carry, but rarely say out loud. Questions about suffering, about doubt, about prayer, about whether we can truly trust the God we serve, not with shallow reassurance, but with biblical depth and thoughtful conviction. Because wrestling with God is not the end of faith, it's often where deeper trust begins. If you have ever struggled to reconcile what you believe with what you've experienced, this book is for you. Visit supportdf.org to get your copy today. That's support, the letter D, the letter F.org. A link is in today's episode notes. Get your copy today and learn to wrestle honestly and trust God more deeply.